Liz Lamping here, PHRA's Executive Director. Welcome to PHRA's podcast, P4, People, Purpose, Passion, Pittsburgh. P4 is brought to you by our members and sponsors, Lattus and the University of Pittsburgh Executive MBA Programs and Center for Executive Education. We appreciate their support and will hear from them throughout the podcast, beginning with the University of Pittsburgh Executive MBA Programs and the Center for Executive Education. In episode 3, Pete Schramm, P4 host, founder of Lattus, and Dave Baker, founder, president, and CEO of Human Capital Advisors, will discuss the power of connection and how onboarding is one of the most important responsibilities in the field of human capital management.
Baker, who are you? Where'd you come from? And what are you all about?
Pete, good to be here. It's kind of interesting how I actually got involved in the world of human resources. When I was in college, my original degree was in psychology, and I did an internship at a mental health facility where I was near where I was going to school. And after about 3 weeks, I thought to myself, I can't do this the rest of my life. And I went back to our career center and found out what other things I could potentially do with a degree in psychology. And they recommended I pick up a degree in industrial relations, and I did that. And became pretty good friends with the person from the career center. And she said, one of the things that will really help you if you go out and get some experience, maybe an internship in the world of human resources. So I applied to every single organization in Latrobe or Greensburg. I went to school at St. Vincent's College. And one of those individuals picked me up as an unpaid intern for 20 hours a week for the last semester of my senior year. And that actually started everything. So it was a tremendous opportunity. That individual's name was Marty Unger. He became one of my mentors. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. But that's actually how my career got started. And it was just one of those wonderful kind of introductions to the world of human resources that, quite honestly, I have loved every minute of throughout my entire career. So the
fire drills and all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of interesting because the one piece of advice that Marty gave me, which actually I kept with me my entire life, was you should do what no one else wants to do. And as a result of that, you'll make a name for yourself. And then he gave me this really garbage project. And I thought to myself, oh my, is this how it really works in the professional world? And so I took on that project. And I was with the Carborundum company at the time. That's where I started. And they had me fly to their corporate headquarters to do a presentation on that project. And eventually I took on 2 other projects that nobody else had touched around the rest of the country. And off my career went. Kind of fun, the way that whole thing got started. I didn't want to live in Niagara Falls. That's where our corporate headquarters was. So I ended up getting hired by a Swiss aerospace firm called Contreras Gertz here in Pittsburgh, and was with them here as an HR representative for a couple of years. And I got transferred to Charlotte, North Carolina, as their HR manager for a couple of years. And they sold the plant down there back in '87, and I got made a connection with a good friend of mine who's a headhunter, and she said, "Hey, they've got this. They've got a new opening with an organization in Pittsburgh you probably know of called WQED, and they've never had an HR person, but they're looking to hire one." And I thought, oh my, this is Marty's sage advice coming, true. And I went up and interviewed with Lloyd Kaiser, who was the CEO, and Tom Skinner, who was the executive vice president, and they both said to me, "Well, Dave, you built this HR department down in Charlotte, North Carolina. You think you could do it here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sure I could do it." I said, "Well, what do you have in place?" And they said, "Nothing." And I said, "What do you mean you have nothing?" So this is a big place, right? They've got 2 TV stations, a radio station. They published the City magazine, and they did all these national productions, right? Mr. Rogers, National Geographic Specials, Infinite Voyage. They were the national seed for the National Literacy Project. They had 1,100 employees. And I said, oh my, I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm getting myself in trouble here, right? So I took the responsibility. And I remember the very first day meeting with Lloyd Kaiser and Tom, and I said, "So where do you want me to start?" They said, "We don't know. This is you. This is all about you." And I went, like, I have a complete blank slate. They said, "Blank slate, go run at it." So I spent 8 years there building out literally their entire infrastructure, all the great things that we've done there. And so that was kind of the pivotal moment that started my career. Got recruited out of there to go to a company in Minneapolis called ADC Telecommunications, much larger, 27,000 employees. Again, the same thing. I assumed responsibility for an operation in Pittsburgh, and after a year of turning that operation around, their corporate headquarters said, "Well, you did such a great job. Can you take over Dallas, Meriden, Connecticut, and our engineering center in Minneapolis?" And I thought to myself, well, your corporate headquarters is in Minneapolis. Why am I taking that over? So I assumed responsibility for all 3 of those. Again, back to Marty Unger's original piece of advice: do what no one else wants to do, and built that out quite a bit, which was a tremendous amount of fun. And then in 2001, I got recruited to become the very first partner for one of the largest venture capital firms in the entire country, Adams Capital Management. Had about $1 billion under management, and they only did software development firms and semiconductor firms, and had operations in Austin, Texas, in Palo Alto, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, and their corporate headquarters was here in Swiftly. And when the partners met with me the very first time, they said, "Look, Dave, there are 635 venture capital firms that exist in this country. 12 of them have tried this model." And I said, "Okay, it's kind of interesting." And Joel Adams, who's the founding and managing partner of the firm, said, "Dave, with all due respect, this is an experiment for us. We're going to try this. And if it doesn't work in a year, you're gone." And I said, again, thinking back to Marty's original sage advice, do what no one else wants to do. I thought, well, this is going to be a real test of it, right? And so I said, with all due respect, Joel, I'm willing to take that risk for you, and I think you're going to be surprised at what we do. And so I took the job. I ended up building the HR departments for 37 different companies that we owned. We were the lead investor, which meant that we owned at least 51% of each of the companies that we invested in. And so my responsibility was to build the HR departments in all of those companies, as well as to lead a internal within the firm executive search practice, where we would go out and hire the CEOs, the chief technology officers, chief financial officers, any of the C-suite or VP level positions within the portfolio companies, and which was a huge. Think about it. You're serving 37 different companies. It's a pretty intense amount of work, and we established and continued to improve upon all of our methods in both the executive search practice as well as in the HR practice. And in 2007, I went to my partners and I said, we could make a lot of money doing this for other companies other than just our 37 that we serve. And they said, Dave, with all due respect, we're a software and semiconductor investor. We don't, this whole human capital thing, that's you. And, I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug at that moment, because as I'm sitting there and literally every week we would see a new investor, a new entrepreneur come through our doors, and they had all these incredibly neat ideas, right? So, I'm now there's over 6 years and watching all these just incredible thought-provoking and innovative ideas that these folks were doing. And I started penciling down, well, if I was going to do what I do out there in the world, what would it be like? What would that model look like? And I kept modifying, the script, if you will, for what that would be. And I went back to them and I pitched them again at the end of 2007, and they said, Dave, look, if you really want to do that, we get it, right? I mean, because we live with entrepreneurs, with these innovators, right? And it was the first time I had ever heard, the phrase that, what venture capitalists do is they invest in future where a lot of people, are investing in things that people know of. And as a result, typically, they're proven methodologies. And in the world of venture capital, that's not the case, right? They're dealing with things that, no one has ever thought of before. And banking on the fact that, they will hit upon something that's just so innovative and so creative that it'll make a huge difference. And so my idea was, really kind of pushing the envelope as far as what we were doing. Because you have executive search firms and you have human resource consulting firms, but you don't have them typically combined together. And so, I said to them, guys, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And I really want to try and give it a chance. So they said, Dave, that'd be great. So on a Friday in February of 2008, I was a partner at the venture capital firm. And on Monday, I launched Human Capital Advisors, and they became my first client. So it was a really nice way to transition into, my own world of entrepreneurship, and we were off and running. So that's how Human Capital Advisors came into being, and we've been improving upon all those methods that we created back there in the venture capital firm ever since. So,
wow, we're going to dig into HC Advisors a little bit more, but the experience across aerospace, TV, radio, engineering, and VC, you've done a lot. And I think you'll share a little bit more about some of how you began sharing this information, right, from the book and what you shared at the HR Academy. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. Dave, take me back to kind of what fueled this interest. Did you play sports? Were you a traveler? Did that feed into this affinity of HR and people at all? Is there some background in that?
It did. Actually, the interesting thing is that, I've always I've never been a great athlete, but a decent athlete all the way through high school. And one of my interests was to eventually go off and play college soccer. Well, we didn't have soccer at my high school. And so I remember working out and literally had never really played organized soccer ever in my entire life. So I remember working out during the summer, hoping that I was going to be able to make the team at St. Vincent's. And all I wanted to do was get on the team. I wasn't sure I was ever going to play, but I wanted to get on the team. So I did this crazy workout schedule that entire summer for 3 months. and went out, tried out for the team, made the team, and lo and behold, the coach is getting ready to announce the starting lineup for the very first game of my freshman year, right? And he calls out all the players and says, Baker, you're going to go right halfback. And I was like, okay, well, I know the right side of the field is over on this side. And I think I know what the players are supposed to do, but I'll kind of fake it until I make it. And so I started that very first game. I played every minute of every game all 4 years and became captain my senior year. And that team, because most of the sports I had played in high school were individual. I was a cross country runner. I was a track runner. Those were individual performances. This is my chance to really work with a bunch of other players. So that connection, that being part of a team and working with other individuals and understanding your role in sports really made a huge difference for me as wanting to be involved in something professionally in the world of human resources. And that's why it actually worked so well at making that transition. So it's fun. So
I love it. Dave, one of the questions I wanted to ask you today is kind of around current events and what's happening. And I think your take on it, given the kind of dual purpose HC Advisors shop that you put together, what's the biggest trend that's impacting HR today?
By far and away, the biggest trend today is talent acquisition. I made a mention of this in the Academy presentation last week. The biggest challenge to every employer, this is every employer in the entire country is experiencing, is the lack of talent or the lack of available talent, and especially skilled talent or experienced talent to fill the positions that you have. And part of that is the fact that there's a huge gap in the total number of individuals available between the baby boomer generation, which I'm a part of, and Gen X, which is right behind us. There's almost 17 million people fewer in Gen X than there is in the boomer generation. And so there's nothing you can do to fill 17 million. Now, of course, that's 17 million total people. Not all those people are employees, but a good 8 million of those individuals are absolutely employees. And you can't replace 8 million, an absence of 8 million people. And, contribute that to the fact that more than 4.5 million boomers that they did not anticipate were going to retired as a result of the pandemic. Now you've got this perfect storm. And so every employer is now experiencing a major challenge with trying to acquire talent and, literally develop new, innovative, quick training programs in order to get people up to speed with learning how to do certain things. The heavy skilled trades, technical challenges within the engineering fields, accounting, all those professions that require a lot of literally training, med school, for example, those are professions that are in dire need of talent to fill lots of opportunities. So the talent acquisition is by far and away the most difficult area that exists right now in human resources.
So how can we, if we take Marty's advice, right? You should do what no one else wants to do, and you're going to make a name for yourself. I think there's got to be some, people out there that are really trying to solve, this talent crisis, right? I've heard it called the Great Resignation or the turnover tsunami, the Great Attrition. There's a bunch of names out there. And so while we, keep trying to figure out how to address this problem, I want to talk about that mentorship piece a little bit more. So you mentioned Marty, and even in this conversation, talking about your background, he's come up a couple of different times. So was that one mentor that you had throughout the entirety? Do you still stay in touch? Did you have multiple mentors? How'd you get it started? Just dig into the mentorship puzzle for us a little bit more from your perspective.
Yeah, actually, I've had several mentors in my career. The second, probably most influential individual was Don Korb. He was the retired treasurer of Westinghouse, and he happened to be on the board at WQED. And he and I got to be really good friends because the former CEO and executive vice president retired, and he took an interim position for about a little over a year. So he and I got to be really close during that time. And his advice and counsel was just extraordinary. When I went to ADC Telecommunications, I went to work for a guy by the name of Jeff Lynn. And I had the exact same experience with him when I walked in the door there. And he said, "Look, Dave, I was the VP of marketing before you came on board. So, I'm now the president of this division, but I don't know anything about human resources. So this is all on you." Right. So take responsibility and run with it. So Jeff was a tremendous mentor to me as well. The one that was probably the most influential, both professionally and personally, was Mr. Fred Rogers, the Fred Rogers. And, working in the same building as him and getting a chance to meet him, just running into him in the halls and getting a chance to watch his live productions was a great thrill for me. And I eventually, because of what he did and, how he mentored children and all the programs that he had created, I thought, boy, it would be really neat to kind of understand kind of how he actually took these very, very difficult things, very, very difficult topics, and kind of made them simple for people to understand. And so had the chance to develop that relationship with Fred. And I would tell you that of all the individuals who've mentored me, that's the one that I value and cherish the most. He's made the biggest influence on me, both professionally and personally.
How'd you get things started with somebody like a Mr. Rogers? It's almost like the celebrity that's in your office, and maybe you're a little bit nervous to have a conversation or say hi. But how'd you kick things off, and kind of where was that foundation laid?
Well, it was kind of interesting because we both came into work the same morning one time. We're both getting on the elevator, and it's just him and me, right? And he looked at me and he said, "You must be the new HR guy." I said, "I am." And he said, "If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to meet you." He goes, "Why don't you stop down sometime when you have a minute to just say hello?" And I thought to myself, "Geez, Fred Rogers is world known. What am I going to say to this guy, right?" So, and I did. I took the opportunity to go down and meet with him. And we had a really, really good and honest discussion. And he said, "Hey, if you ever get a chance again, I'd love to talk to you again." And so I made a point of trying to meet with him about once a quarter. Not, nothing with a formal agenda. Just, I would walk in and, say, "Hey, I'm dealing with such and such. If you were dealing with something like this, what would it be?" Right? And he was, although obviously his profession wasn't human resources, it was people, and especially how to deal with difficult people, larger adult challenges with little people, right? Children. And so that wisdom that he had created during that time was actually very profound to me. And I took that same approach because a lot of times we all think everybody knows what we know, right? And as a result of that, we approach things that, from our own center of experience. And he never did that. He always assumed that people didn't understand all the aspects of things that they were dealing with. And as a result, try to make it simpler for people to understand. And I took that to heart. And even today, when I'm meeting with individuals, I never make the assumption that everybody knows what I'm about to do, right? I try to say, okay, so these are how all the pieces are going to go together so that and then we architect those pieces in order that they work most effectively inside the organizations that we serve. So
Dave, you mentioned a couple of times whenever you came into new roles, and there's this theme of fake it till you make it, but you went around and you were asking different questions and learning and meeting new people to truly understand what needed to be accomplished. And of course, this takes a little bit of, understanding people, but also understanding what to do. We're going to talk a little bit more about the what to do, but I want to dig deeper on the how to do it. You know, Mr. Rogers being such a great people person, you being in HR is a lot about, people and interacting with others, the psychology background as well. So, whenever we think EQ, IQ, emotional intelligence, I think we might have already heard of some of the individuals that really had a high EQ. But is there, kind of one or two tidbits that they shared with you, or somebody that kind of took it to the next level? Maybe that is, Fred Rogers, but, dig into that piece of emotional intelligence for us a little bit more.
Yeah, it's, you learn over years to value certain tidbits of advice that people have given you, and I don't know who said it. I should do some research on this, but I heard once that the good Lord made us with two ears and one mouth, and we should use them in proportion to the numbers that they were given to us by. And so, one of the most valuable things is actually the ability to listen and listen actively. I think that skill set has really been invaluable to me, especially as a consultant, because you never know what you're going to deal with. And especially in the world of human resources, right? We do a lot of employee investigations, and there's all kinds of things that people assume that they know and understand, and you typically don't. So listening and having an extremely high level of curiosity and interest in other people is also a skill set that they don't tell you about in the world of human resources. But I remember one of the very first people, the HR people that I interfaced with, a coworker of mine at Contravis. So this is back in 81, 82. She said, I would love being in human resources if it wasn't for the people. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what are you doing in this profession? And I always thought to myself, boy, I really hope I never get that jaundiced about, what I do for a living, because boy, wouldn't this be miserable if that's the way I approached my profession. And so, that curiosity, that interest in other people, that willingness to listen, I think really does make a huge difference. And today, for example, the ability to establish rapport with other individuals is a soft skill that is kind of undervalued in the field of human resources. And when you start to think about dealing with individuals, you sometimes think about the message that the people are going to receive from you, right? Whether that's in verbal or in writing, any of the programs that you typically give, that kind of understanding of, who's your audience, who are the people you're interfacing with, but that curiosity of making sure, boy, I should really make sure that I know all about this particular topic before I make presentation of it, because otherwise, it's going to come across as empty and people are going to know that, you're faking it. And so I've always been very cautious of that, to research a lot of different things in the field that we're in. I read about an hour a day in the field of human resources, and I probably should spend 2 or 3 hours a day, because I sometimes feel like I'm falling behind in our field because it moves so quickly. And I think that allows me to have a little bit of a competitive edge, because I do love this field, and I'm constantly trying to get better every single day. So I just love it. So
2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more and speak less. I think what's Hamilton? I think there's a line in the Hamilton musical where he says that. But 2 ears, 1 mouth. On the other P4 podcast episode, there's this guy John Putsier, who you might know him. He said the same thing, right? We need to listen more. So
yeah,
it's almost as if the two of you may have worked together a little bit or something. It's a little bit about programming, and you talk about the need for, how did you put it? The lack of available skilled, experienced talent. Okay, so once we find all those folks, they got to come into these organizations and get up and running. And you've done this multiple times. I guess it's now dozens of organizations all across the country and all around the world. But let's dig in more on onboarding. So over the last couple of years, the world has changed. How has the onboarding process changed? Do you think there's, things that have gotten better? Any tips for hybrid or remote onboarding while we're in these interesting times? And then after this, we're going to dig into some, rapid fire questions. But talk to us, Dave, about onboarding.
Well, I would say that onboarding is one of the most important things that we all can do in the field of human capital, human resources today. And the reason is statistics and research will tell you that a really good onboarding program improves the retention of individuals by a factor of 2x, 2 times the normal retention of individuals. So onboarding isn't orientation. It's not insurance forms and introductions and finding where the restrooms are in the building. It's really trying to make sure that individuals are developing relationships with their coworkers, that they're being mentored by other individuals, that they're really starting to understand the full role and responsibility of what they're doing inside the organization. The best onboarding programs that exist last about a year, and it's meant, to have programming specifically created in order to integrate those people into every aspect of the organization and every member of their team as much as possible. And so now all of a sudden, if an individual is potentially being recruited away to go to another organization, they say to themselves, I like it here. I like the people I'm working with. I like what I do. They've really spent a lot of time with me. They've cared about me, right? And part of that nurturing kind of natural experience that you have from the field of human resources makes that connectivity really, really important as those people continue to kind of grow and develop roots within the organization. I think that's more important than anything else. The hybrid world is a new and interesting dynamic. You'll find that research today will tell you that a lot of hybrid employees, those who work from home a lot, feel disconnected. And so having programs, in order to have those individuals interface, in a group setting, regular meetings with individuals, having the opportunity to really feel connected with individuals, including now, getting the chance to meet outside of, their normal job responsibilities and meet personally is again another way to increase that retention aspect of the onboarding methods, right? And again, this is new space. We would have never thought of hybrid employees, 2 years ago, right? But it's something that's evolving, and I think that it's going to continue because a lot of employees like that method, the ability to work from home. And so employers have got to be innovative and creative in order to continue to move that forward. So
one of the other episodes, somebody mentioned the golden rule being treat others as you would want to be treated, and the platinum rule being to treat others as they would want to be treated. And I think it makes, all the more importance now when we're in this, age of employee choice and the era of work from anywhere during this talent crisis. So very interesting. And we'll ask a little bit more of where we can get more information and tidbits. Dave, in that the Everything HR Toolkit, is there anything in there that might talk about some onboarding programs? Or if we wanted to learn a little bit more, maybe kind of guide us on some of the best practices that you've developed?
Actually, when John Putzier and I wrote the book, we dedicated one entire chapter just to onboarding, specifically because of the fact that that's really what we believe is the cement that keeps the employees feeling as part of the organization going forward. So there's an entire set of tools and techniques that we have written in there, probably much too much to get involved in with us here today, but it's a really, really good chapter. And quite honestly, when you start to think about those the connectivity, the golden rule, if you will, as you said, Pete, is probably one of those things that we should all personalize in our professional lives and make that part of our credo, if you will, going forward.
Yeah. Dave, this is fun, and I've had the pleasure of getting to meet you over these last few months, and every time we talk, I learn a little bit more. You ready for a little rapid fire now?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Dave, think of 2 or 3 resources in HR. You said you spend an hour reading a day. If I want to go here, 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 where are those 3 resources?
Yeah, I can tell you right now, the 2 people that I'm reading a lot about are Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. I'm reading that again for the second time. I think that there's a tremendous amount of wisdom that Simon has out there, and so I can't consume enough of his content. And Jordan Peterson is another individual who ultimately is a psychologist, back to my roots. But he wrote the 12 Rules for Life. I'm reading that as we speak. Some of it's a little heady, but some of that material makes such total common sense to those of us in leadership roles, especially in business today. And so those are the 2 kind of resources that I'm turning to right now. Kind of a little bit one-off in the world of human resources. I've read all the things on HR metrics and analytics and tools and all the rest of that. So it's a little more esoteric than might otherwise be. But our field, requires us to be really, really good at what we do. The becoming, and I made mention of this before. I recommend, quite honestly, that one of the great skills of in the field of human resources to become an executive coach, right? And executive coaching is listening to other individuals and interfacing with them and trying to help understand not only where they are, but how they move from where they are today to where they could be tomorrow, right? All of us have run off strategic plans, right? And strategic plans are, this is where we are today. We've done our SWOT analysis, and now you're trying to say, okay, so where are you going to be tomorrow? So taking that executive coaching from a personal perspective and applying it in a human resource capacity will really improve those overall human resource skills going forward. So that one additional skill set, I think, was really important to most of us in our field, what we do in human resources.
You just answered one of the other questions I was going to ask, is if you could say, hey, go back and tell your younger self to get one skill a little bit sooner. Okay, so to become an executive coach in HR, very, very interesting. Cool. Dave, this has been a lot of fun. We look forward to hearing more from you and reading more about HC advisors and you being more involved in the PHRA community. So thank you again for your time on the P4 podcast today. We're going to, get some more of those data points that you shared earlier and put those into the notes so everybody can be able to read and follow, and links to some more of that very helpful information that you shared with us. But from aerospace to TV to radio to engineering and the venture world, we got to hear about your take on people engagement and the power of connections and being real, and how to listen and really meet them where they are to help solve this problem of figuring out where is that talent, bringing them in, the right people in, but then getting them up and running over that 12 month, 1 year onboarding orientation that is ongoing. It's not one and done. And it's so cool. Dave, thank you so much. Any last pieces to share with the community?
Now, Pete, the only other thing I would say, quite honestly, is that the tools that you all are creating at Lattus to get people engaged and to understand mentoring and actually how to increase the overall connectivity of individuals. Those tools that you all are creating within the Lattus organization are, I believe, paramount to the success of human resource professionals, right? And so it's the way, quite honestly, to make human connections on a very common, regular basis. You can use it in professional development, you can use it in performance management, you can use it on all kinds of different areas. So I would recommend that from your perspective, you keep that up and you keep moving that forward, and hopefully, we'll get a chance to see a new version of the Everything HR Kit, and we'll see where that hopefully takes us. If we can combine some of the things that you've done and some of the things that we're doing, I think that ultimately that would be a huge success for all of us in the world of human resources. So I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with everybody today.
In a world where businesses are coming to terms with the demands of employee choice, solutions to improve workplace culture are crucial. Businesses of all sizes are doing everything they can to attract and retain top talent during this unprecedented time. Connection to the team, a sense of belonging, and a feeling of purpose rank high in the needs of today's work-from-anywhere society. Sound familiar? At Lattus, we understand the importance team building and positive employee-employer relationships have on the success of a workplace. Done well, top-down and peer-to-peer knowledge sharing can unlock new levels of productivity and profitability to create a culture of cohesive collaboration. Ongoing high-quality connections reduce burnout and mitigate mental health issues, more important now than ever with social isolation on the rise. Lattus is a tool to make internal employee engagement easier and much more impactful for the entire organization. Lattus is a proven, secure workplace solution that is easy to implement for organizations of all sizes. So what are you waiting for? Let's Lattus.
The PHRA P4 podcast was created to help build HR leaders through discussions with thought and business leaders on the most critical success factor of any business, its people. If you enjoy an episode, please help us spread the word by subscribing to the podcast and providing us a rating. We would love for you to take a screenshot of the episode, tag PHRA, and share it with your followers. Until next time, thank you for watching and thank you for listening.